elsewhere as well. Jon Machota. So, John, we're in Oxnard, California. It is Mike McCarthy, Jerry, Stephen, whoever, Rich Dalrymple. What would your first question to open training camp be if you had the first question?
Jerry, you think this team's good enough to win the Super Bowl? And that wouldn't be something I would ask anybody, but Jerry Jones, you never know what he's going to say. So it would definitely be asking Jerry something along those lines to see if we get this thing started off, because that's the thing, like enough of those pre-kickoff training camp press conferences, there's always like some type of Jerry saying some type of glory hole thing, or, like he knows what he's doing out there. So I would just lob it up to him to see if he would say something really bold or something right off the bat. Yeah, that would probably be my first thing.
How long would that answer be, Paul?
Oh, I'm sure it would be.
Yes.
And then he would go through, and he said, there's things that people don't see, and he would go through all of it that he's confident in. John, Nahshon Wright is getting a lot of hype out of minicamp. Now, granted, I worry that he might be the guy who everybody's excited about, but I mean, he's going to probably look like a third rounder early on, isn't he? I mean, or are people that confident in him all of a sudden?
No, I mean, I think he's looked pretty good at rookie minicamp and OTAs. And then he stands out. That also helps him because of his height and his size. So those are going to be things that are natural for people to gravitate towards. And then just the fact that everybody knows, I mean, how many times did we talk about for how many months, how big corner was a need for them? And then so when they don't address it with that 10 pick, I thought for certain was going to happen. Then all of a sudden you're just like, well, okay. They got Micah Parsons, but now what are they doing at corner? And then they draft a guy in the second round who, there's some off the field concerns, and, he's missing some of this OTA time because of an illness and being quarantined for 10 days. And so, you're might be a little skeptical there. And then if you're a Cowboys fan and you've watched over the last few years, you kind of feel like, yeah, I got a good sample size. I know what we got in Anthony Brown and Jordan Lewis. That's not really wowing me. So, and then you got Trayvon Diggs. So you're like, well, we got one guy on one side. I feel pretty good that, his best ball still ahead of him and he could be a potential Pro Bowl player. So just as a fan, especially this time of year, it becomes, okay, what is the next thing? Like who could be the somebody that could be a sleeper that could get some time? And he certainly fits that bill, because obviously there's a new defensive coordinator who likes the size of Nahshon Wright, and he obviously wanted him enough to draft him late in the third round when most experts didn't have him going to like the 5th, 6th, or 7th round. And so, yeah, there's going to be a lot of reason for that, for hype behind a guy like that. But, playing corner is tough for the elite of the elite, Jalen Ramsey's and Patrick Peterson's coming right out of college, like the elite of the elite, top 10, top 5 guys, let alone a guy getting taken late in the third round. Expect him to come in and just all of a sudden be your starting corner. I think that's asking a lot.
John, if you had to go all in on a receiver leading the category or leading the Cowboys, just overall statistically, are you going Michael Gallup, you going CeeDee Lamb, or are you going Amari Cooper?
I'm going CeeDee Lamb. I think that there's a lot left there. I don't think we even seen him scratch the surface. I think CeeDee Lamb is certainly capable of putting up the numbers that we saw Justin Jefferson doing last year for the Vikings. And so, he happens to be in an offense where the quarterback got hurt, and their starting franchise quarterback got hurt, and then he's got 2 other big play receivers around him. But no, I think CeeDee Lamb is just. You can just see the growth in him, and then again, when just watching those practices, even if you're not looking for him, he just does things that make him stand out. That, in a way, even though they wear the same number, they do things differently. But it's one of those things where if you're just standing there watching practice about 5-6 years ago, it was real easy to find 88 because there was just things that Dez was doing that was just different than everybody else that just make you stand out. And there's certain players like that. I'm sure that if we were having a conversation right now with some writers that have covered Atlanta for a long time, they'd say the same thing about Julio Jones. And when back in Michigan, there was a couple times I got to go to Lions practices. I would say the exact same thing about Calvin Johnson. There's just certain guys that they're just different and they just really stand out. They catch your eye even when you're not looking at them, and that's CeeDee Lamb.
When he has been healthy, Keanu Neal has registered 100 tackles or so on average per year. I don't know about what happened to him in 18 or 19. Obviously, there's injuries involved there. But in the end, is he a hybrid? Is he a safety? I know that they want to move a linebacker. What are they going to do with Keanu? Is he just going to be everywhere?
I think it depends on the health of the players on defense. If Jalen Smith is healthy and Leighton Vander Esch is healthy and Micah Parsons and Jabril Cox are all healthy and they're all playing well. I mean, this is already a scenario that we know is not going to happen. But we're going to pretend that happens. If it does, then I could see him filling in and playing a little bit more safety just because they're going to be like, hey, this is one of our better defenders. This is a guy that certainly knows what Dan Quinn wants to do. He's still got plenty of good ball left ahead of him. We need him on the field somehow. More likely is that maybe one or two of those linebackers are pretty solid, and they work him in there at linebacker with that group, and then also maybe in certain packages. I think if he's playing safety, regardless if it's the quote unquote, like, he's not going to be the deep safety. So even if he's technically out there as a safety, he's going to be that safety that's up near the line of scrimmage, that is playing the strong safety role, which you can kind of meld it into what he could be asked to do as a weak side linebacker. So it could be kind of a hybrid role for him, of kind of being a Swiss Army knife of doing multiple things, because they certainly seem like they want to be more multiple in defense. So I think that was the key part for Dan Quinn to get him, because he knows he can play multiple different positions. But as far as your deep safety, I think that type of stuff all comes down to DeMonte Casey and probably even Jaron Kearse more than it would be Keanu Neal. Keanu Neal, I think, fits more into that Donovan Wilson strong safety. But here's the thing, like, as of right now, if everybody's healthy, I think he sticks as being kind of a hybrid linebacker and sees most of his time at linebacker. But, there's going to be injuries at linebacker. There's going to be injuries at safety where they need guys to fill in those multiple spots. And that's where it really helps to have a guy like Keanu Neal, because he can play some safety for you and he can play some linebacker for you.
Do you expect Zeke Elliott to be closer to form this year than he was last year, or is there still concern there even after the positive reviews of minicamp?
Well, again, I think with him, it's another one where if you can tell me what the health is going to be, then if he's healthy, then I think he could have his best year since, he could be up for the rushing title, just because he's got a talented offensive line in front of him, and he's going to have a very good passing game. That was the thing in whether we're talking 2014 with DeMarco Murray or 2016, 2017 with Zeke, when all those 3 seasons the Cowboys had the NFL rushing leader. One of the big things that was always a storyline was how other teams are just crowding the box. You had to beat them you had to do stuff in the passing game to get that extra player out of the box. Well, nobody should really be playing with an extra player in the box right now against this Cowboys team with all the weapons they have in the passing game. So there should be plenty of opportunities for Zeke, if he's healthy, to have a huge season. And I don't mean necessarily that they got to be like they were under Jason Garrett, where it's just they're constantly feeding the ball 20, 25 times a game. He can be the change-up as opposed to the passing the ball being the change-up. But I just feel like if he's healthy, he'll be fine. If that offensive line is healthy, I think he'll have a definitely a better year than he had last year. But I'm not ready to sit here and say that he's going to be 2016 Zeke. That was just an absolute freak show coming out the gates, what we saw that year, where he was leaping over guys, trucking guys. He was very healthy. But there's just no question that the wear and tear he's taken on his body, whether it be combining those years at Ohio State and then this time with the Cowboys, that takes a toll on you after a while, and you can only take so many of those shots. So he looked good in training. In minicamp and OTAs, and he seems healthy and he seems very motivated. So everything seems like a go, but that can change real quick with just a small injury.
John, I ask you this because every time a guy is, a free agent or perhaps involved in trade rumors, the Cowboys, if it's a name guy, always get brought up. But I also ask this because this guy's a former Baylor star. Xavier Howard in Miami, he's holding out right now from camp. Brian Flores has commented on it and said that it's just something that they're working through. If, and I know it's a big if, but if Xavier Howard in Miami were to come to the conclusion that they might dangle him out there, would the Cowboys have any interest, and would there be any way feasibly for them to perhaps pursue an Xavier Howard?
I'd be absolutely stunned if that happened, and Dak Prescott is the biggest reason for this. The Cowboys will always be mentioned with these guys, but now that they made Dak the highest paid player in franchise history, knowing what the salary cap's going to be and how much they can fit under the cap, and then the fact knowing that they're going to need as many draft picks as possible to continue filling out this team around Dak, because those are the most affordable pieces you can get. I just cannot see them giving up draft picks to go get a player like Xavier Howard because they're going to have to give up a decent amount. They need those draft picks now more than ever to fill out the rest of the roster for these next 4 or 5 years with the contract Dak has. I mean, that's just how it's going to be. So, yeah, the Cowboys are always going to be mentioned in these conversations for all these players and stuff. I don't think it's possible with just the way that their money is allocated. I don't know how you could afford to bring on a contract like that and give up the picks. It just doesn't make a ton of sense. And I think that they would rather go the younger route just because they know that, hey, we got more money tied up in this player at quarterback than we've ever had tied up in a player before. So that's the thing. Like, you weren't going to just pay Dak and be like, yeah, everything's going to be business as usual. You're going to pay Dak, but it's going to cost you in some other areas of the team where you're going to have to go with young guys. And that means you're not going to be able to have, standout players at every position.
Last year, it seemed like the Cowboys were more involved in creating turnovers, which we know now for how many years, Paul? Forever. They have struggled with, but they did have kind of a slew of them. What was that? Was that from players who create turnovers, or was that the defense that was riddled? What in the end do you think? I guess what my question is if that a possibility of who they could become?
I would say last year, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, with what I believe, I think there's a lot of luck involved. I just think there's some years that, it's just kind of like, it's like gambling. Like, how many years were they bad at getting turnovers? Like, it was obscene. Like, it was like, this doesn't even, like, the algorithm on that didn't even make any sense. So you feel like eventually at one time it's got to turn, even whether you're going to get the ball out or not. And because I never thought that was an issue under the Rod Marinelli defenses, where it was like, they're just not trying to strip the ball because they're not really that worried about it. So they worked on all that stuff. They practiced it as much as they practice it now. I think that they were put in some situations where guys probably took, a few more gambles, especially because the defense was not nearly as solid, and that probably helped out a little bit. And then you were playing some bad quarterbacks. You're playing some bad teams. I think that stuff factors in as well. Do I think that they'll get more turnovers with what Dan Quinn's trying to be doing, being more multiple than they did under Rod Marinelli? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't see this all of a sudden becoming a defense where you're like at the end of the year going, yeah, Cowboys top 5 in takeaways. Like, I don't think that happens. I don't think it goes all the way back to Marinelli, but I don't think that all of a sudden they turn this corner and they're about to be some elite takeaway defense.
It goes back further than Rod Marinelli. I mean, it's been years since they've been. I can't even remember the last time you were really thinking about them, John, as a turnover creating defense.
I feel like you'd have to go back to, I would think at the time, Mike Jenkins was probably one of the corners whenever that was. It's probably Mike Jenkins and like maybe some Gerald Sensabaugh at safety and a little Scandrick mixed in there. Some of those names. It's probably the last time that it was. But really, when Marinelli took over in 2014, that's when they kind of went to the more of the bend but don't break, keep everything in front of you. We're going to get most of our pass rush from our front four. Yeah, teams are going to know what we're going to do, but we're also not going to give up huge plays. And our offense is going to help us win games. And then now last year, it seemed like they tried to be a little bit more offensive on defense, if you will, a little bit more, taking a little bit more risk, taking a little bit more chances. Of course, the flip side of that is then you give up some big plays that were kind of uncustomary under a Rod Marinelli. So, it's a give and take on that. Like I said, I could see them having more than that time. I just do not look at them as being some team that all of a sudden you're just like, hey, watch out. This is Legion of Boom Part 2.
Anything else, Paul?
Nope.
Greg? All right. John, thank you very much. Jon Machota, athletic.com. That website continues to just explode how good it is across the board. I saw that they hired a new writer that is involved in the gambling and whatever else. So we're going to have a much more impact for you if you're interested in odds and